Hello, everyone. Welcome to Adams Polish's Wednesday Live. I need a towel because these bottles are dusty and it's driving me crazy. Will you grab a towel from back there so I can... Okay, this is good to go. Okay, welcome everybody to Adams Polish's Wednesday Live video. I got to give a shout out to Chester really quick. He actually emailed me. I didn't respond because I've been kind of busy, but Chester, pretty much everyone's been requesting this, but Chester was like, hey, can you do something on the Proline compounds and polishes and maybe show the graphene, like the new Proline Defend? And so this old Mustang's been sitting here, and actually it's kind of cool because this car is in the showroom, but it's also a detailing project for somebody that works here. And so it's actually Colton who runs our whole warehouse. And so he is in the process of polishing this, and he's going to put the Pro graphene ceramic coating on this. So I talked to him, and he was like, oh, please do that because you're going to help me make progress. So we got this car, and actually he had already polished it. And so what I did, for everyone here on the live, don't tell anybody, but I took a plastic bag to this thing and scratched it up like crazy. So you can see I added a bunch of swirl marks to it. Because what I want to do is show you guys the compounds and polish of the Proline. So we got it nice and damaged up. I mean, listen, some people's cars are not this bad, but this is pretty consistent with a lot of people's cars that they have. You know, this can be anything from, taking it through a machine, a automated car wash, or as Adam likes to call it, a scratch-o-matic with the brushes. It can be everything from not using the right type of towels to many different factors, So I want to just showcase this stuff for you guys so you can see it, and I'll explain the Proline a little bit more here in a minute. I wish Gavin didn't go away. I think I left the Pro ceramic coating upstairs, so I'm gonna have to run up and get that. But one thing I do want to say, I was looking for it. I don't think I have any out here right now, but we just launched our Valentine's Day collection, the 2026 collection, and it's a really cool design this year. But it came with Valentine's Day detail spray, and also came with a Valentine's Day liquid air freshener, which we've never done as a limited. So a little bit different, a little bit mix up this year, but it came out really good. The boys, Teddy's behind the camera today. Teddy and Gavin were able to take pictures on a really nice red 911 Porsche Turbo, which the pictures came out amazing. So make sure you go check that out. Obviously, it's on our Instagram. Go to our website, you can see it. But everything looks really cool this year. And I don't want to give away the design, but there's a life-size teddy bear cleaning a car on the label, which I think is really cool. Today, I'm going to be using our SK Pro 12mm, the SK Pro Mini, I think is what it's called. It's like the 3-inch backing plate, which we use a 3.5-inch pad. The reason why I picked the smaller one, even though this is a big flat panel, is I want to show you guys the different compounds and polishes in sections, and then we'll end up making it perfect. Thank you, Gavin. That's Gavin right there, by the way. Gavin is fresh chicken here at Adams Polish. Well, not really anymore. He was a big part of the Black Friday launch and new photographer, but both these new guys are amazing, so make sure you give them a shout out because a lot of the stuff you see, it's pictures they're taking. So I got the graphene Defend here. I'll talk about this a little bit later. I'm going to show you guys how to use it. It's not much different, but one thing I do want to show you guys is that comes in a pretty significantly large bottle. It's almost double the amount. It goes from a 60 mil to 100 mil when you can access it through the Pro account. And before I start, I'll just touch on the Proline. We I think a lot of you guys know about it already, but we launched it at SEMA 2025. Had really great reception to it, and I've talked about this before, but this whole company was built on the back of a detailer. Adam had been a professional detailer for many years before he even started his own product line. And so, I think him being a professional detailer, plus, since Adams Polishes existed, we've had a lot of professional detailers using our products. And they're not necessarily designed for professionals. They're designed for the guy doing it in his driveway, DIY at home. And so they're not ultra concentrated. They're kind of ready to use. No need to dilute them, anything like that. But pros still really liked the product because it's, they're premium car care products. And so the Proline, we had started a Proline many years back, but it was just like taking what's in these bottles and putting it in a bigger bottle. And we were like, you know what? We should revise that and create an actual professional line that are completely separate design formulas for pros that are not equivalent to what is on the shelf here other than over there. But so these are very much designed by professionals. And if you go to our website, you scroll to the very, very bottom. We have a footer down there that most websites have this, but there's like a bunch of different links down there, maybe for customer service or other things. And down there, there's a little link that says Proline login. And if you click that, you can see the whole Proline lineup, but it gives you an option to sign up as a pro, or if you're already signed up, you can log in as a pro. And so, you'll see if you go and you don't have a pro login, you'll see the prices are outrageous, okay? Because what we're trying to do is weed out the everyday person, but it's still accessible to the everyday consumer. So like if you want to spend crazy amount of money to access this, you can. Be aware though, because a lot of this stuff, there's some products in there that are very much designed for pros. Like we have a wheel acid that I don't recommend any average DIY detailer to use. It's just too gnarly. It's not anything that you would need. Pros see so many different types of conditions of cars that they need a lot of different effective tools and products that they need to get the job done. But anyways, to sign up as a professional for the Proline, you need to have a registered EIN number, or a better way to put that is a tax ID number. And so once you submit that, you go through the submission process, you get approved, and then you get access to the Proline login, and then that gives you special pricing on all the products, which is super competitive for professionals. So, we did that on purpose because, for professionals, oftentimes a professional detailer, they're solo outfit. They don't have a ton of employees. Some shops do, but I'd say, majority of professional detailers is just one person. And so really a lot of their overhead is how much the product costs. And so we for the professionals, once you log in, you get very competitive pricing. And so the last thing I'll say about it is I was just in Arizona for Barrett-Jackson here 2 weeks ago. We have a few different teams of professional detailers that we handpick. It's all like word of mouth, but they all are professional detailers. They're not just people we train. They're people that they're like accredited Adams Polishes professional detailers. They use our products. They have been for years, and they were using the Proline for detailing the cars at Barrett-Jackson. They do machine polishing on the spot at Barrett-Jackson, and they were using this. And everyone I talked to is like, I don't know what you did or who made it, but all the compounds and all the Proline products, they were ranting and raving about it because they said it worked so good and it was awesome. I actually think my mic is a little bit turned up. I'm going to turn the sensitivity down for you guys. Tell me if that is better. I'm sure it sounded really, really loud. Forgot to do that. Okay. Anyways. All the pros at Barrett-Jackson were ranting and raving about it. So they really, really, like the product a lot. So, I don't disagree because it is. These are very much, like in our regular polishing line, you have just compound and polish for the most part. We have a heavy cutting compound that can boost the regular compound, but it's really designed for the everyday guy, right? Keep it really simple. The pads are color coded. You can't really mess it up. But for professionals, sometimes that compound and polish, just the two-step, doesn't get the results that they want. So in the Proline, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different compounds and polishes, including a one-step. And so it gives the professional more options. And the thing about the professionals as well is like they know the ins and outs of the different pads and different materials that the pads are made out of. So they're a little bit better. They have a little bit more knowledge and understanding of being able to mix and match pads, which I will talk about during this live. I just want to get some of the dust off of here.
Are there going to be new pads solely for the Proline?
Probably eventually there will be new pads solely for the Proline, but right now we don't have that. But to be honest with you, like, you know, don't necessarily need it right now because we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different types of pads that we offer through Adams Polishes. And so in each one of those, you know, are made up of different materials or different structures of foam. And so those pads really already, they're really very much designed for this stuff. But the thing I would say that we are going to expand into is maybe a different, like I have a wool cutting pad here. You know, and it's a pretty low pile wool, meaning like the fibers aren't very long. So one thing we're going to look into is getting a wool pad that has longer fibers. You know, might look into microfiber pads that are longer fibers, but also the profile of the pad, pretty thin. We can get some that are a little bit more thick, maybe even more thin than this, but that will be really like the next step of really what we want to do is find pads that work perfect with all these different compounds and polishes. And what we need to do is start testing those and figuring out which combinations work the best. Got any other questions? I just feel like I talk a lot, you know?
No.
Which I'm sure is like annoying. Okay. Let's see, I'm just getting the pads out right now. Not only am I going to talk about the different compounds polishes, but I am going to talk about the pads and the structure of them. So
Anton mentioned if you thicken the pads, please make them taper.
yeah, if we think that, yeah, taper for sure. Anton's right. Well, ours are already kind of tapered. You can kind of see it, like they're beveled like this. The reason why you bevel them is like if you go up against something like this, the soft foam or the pad hits it, not the backing plate of the polisher, you know. But I will say this, like the taller you make a pad, the more movement it has, and what ends up happening is it throws the machine off balance, and then your hands start to shake while you're using it. So that's why generally like they're about an inch tall and not more than that, you know. So but again, like and the thing about having thicker pads is that the more thick the pad is, the more it absorbs your pressure when you're pushing. So, you know, there's a reason why like the microfiber pad is half the thickness of foam than the foam pads, because you're being more aggressive with a microfiber pad, so you don't want it to absorb as much of the pressure. And like when you feel them next to each other, like this is much more firm than, especially this is like super fine type of finishing. But yeah, there's a reason why like the height of the pads is different. And so with the pads, you have 5 different, ranging from the most aggressive in the wool pad all the way to the least aggressive in the red foam pad. And you know, wool and microfiber, different material, and they kind of serve different purposes. Wool tends to retain a lot of like heat Plus, there's more fine fibers in the wool than there is in microfiber. And so the wool pad tends to be a little bit more aggressive. So you tend to use a wool pad when you need to do a lot of work. Okay, so I tend to kind of keep the wool pad with both the cut and the correct Proline compounds. And then same with microfiber. Again, pretty aggressive of a pad. So I kind of keep it with these two. I might bump it down to refine, you know. The blue foam pad, firm foam pad with an open cell structure. So if you guys have some of this stuff at home, you can actually do this. But if you take the pad and you blow it into the side of it, you can blow air through this pad. So the blue foam pad, which is more designed for cutting, like used with a compound, you want to have an open cell structure because you want the compound to actually go into the pad. And because it actually goes into the pad, it doesn't break down the compound as fast. So it allows it to work, the diminishing abrasive inside these compounds, you want it to work for longer because it does more correction. So having an open cell foam does that, but also it's kind of a 2-for-1. The open cell helps air move through the pad so it keeps it more cool, if that makes sense. Then when you move to the white polishing pad, if you take this and you blow, you can't blow any air through it. It is like a dead stop. And that means it's a closed cell structure. So it's softer, but it's a closed cell. So when you use so a polish and a compound are different, but when you use a polish, it keeps it on the surface right here and it breaks the polish down faster. So the diminishing abrasive breaks down more and refines more. And that's what helps give you like the mirror finish when you're using a refinement pad like this one. And then the red is the softest pad and it's open cell, okay? So with it being an open cell, it allows a polish to work for longer. And so I tend to use this pad for super delicate surfaces. And what I do is I will lower the speed of my polisher and let these refine or jewel work for longer. So you can allow it to break down longer. And then, for finicky finishes, you use that for that. So I have these set up right here with the exception of Primo of most aggressive to least aggressive. So cut is going to be super heavy duty cutting. Correct is going to step down from that, then refine, then jewel. And jewel, I would say, all of these are very different than our compound and polish. But, somewhat of a goal here is to, if I could get away with doing one step with any of these, that's ideal, right? Because for professionals, time equals money. So the longer they spend polishing on a car, the less money they would make or the more they have to charge the customer. So let's say that you book a job and you're expecting to do it in 8 hours, but you can do it in 6. You got essentially 2 hours worth of time that you got paid for that you didn't do anything, right? Not to say that you're stealing from the customer, but the idea of this is to make your paint correction process more efficient. Okay, and the other thing too is if you could get away with doing, paint correction jobs in 6 hours, then if you're willing to work 12-hour days, you could do 2 cars in a day. So now you can create multiples of output that allows you to do more work, which equates to more money as a professional. So, so that's kind of the idea around this. So one thing I do want to do, I don't know if we have any. I don't know where it is. I would love to tape this off if I could. Trent, do you have any?
Yeah. Yeah, let's go look.
Do you have any tape back here?
Yeah.
We got you.
Like tape for the car?
Scotch?
Scotch.
Oh, like
the
Yeah.
skinny or thick?
Thick would be oh, I see it. What am I doing, man? That is just right here.
It's almost like you don't work here.
Yeah, I know. Almost like I don't work here.
Real quick, do you know if you have a pro account, if shipping and processing is expedited at all for the Proline?
That's a good question. Someone asked, do I know if you have a pro account, if the shipping stuff is expedited? I don't know. I imagine if you spend a certain amount of money, it would be free shipping on ground shipping, but I don't think for pros it is like you get free 2-day shipping. Like, unfortunately, we're not Amazon, so so I don't think that you would get that, but I think that would be a question to ask like customer service, or I could, if you email me that same question, I could find out for you, but I doubt it if I had to guess. Okay, I'm just gonna throw some, this is actual like design tape for doing, this is detailer's tape. We actually sourced this. We sourced this tape from Germany actually, because it's the best tape that we found for like detailer's tape. And like the reason why we sell this is, you know, this car is a little different because it's not a modern car with like rubber trim, but when you're doing your polishing, you can tape off everything to tape off everything. So like, you know, it's kind of one of those things where when you're polishing or doing the compounding process, if polish or compound gets onto rubber or plastic, it will stain it, and then you have to clean it later. So if you tape it off first, then you can either tape it off, or you can actually use VRT before you start polishing, and VRT will create a barrier. So like if you end up getting polish on your rubber or plastic with VRT on it already, you can just wipe it directly off. You don't have to scrub it off with like tire and rubber cleaner. So you can either use tape or you can use VRT. And I think, you know, I tend to say like when you're doing paint correction, especially if you're doing ceramic coating after, you probably want to tape it, because if you put VRT on, then the ceramic coating won't adhere to the trim because you have VRT on there. So the tape is pretty important. So, you know what, I might have screwed this up. Let's see. Let me tape one more section, a little bit larger section.
Blue Ridge wants to know, is VRT like a dressing?
VRT is a dressing, yeah. Yeah. It's like a really nice lipstick for your trim, you know? But yeah, it's a dressing. It adds a little bit of protection, especially if you're using the graphene VRT. That has a little bit more of protection agents in it. The regular VRT has a little bit, but not as much as the graphene. But yeah, like when I first started working here, there was no ceramic coating, and so you would wash your car. If you were gonna wax it or whatever, you would then like treat all of the plastic and rubber trim with VRT. And just so you know, VRT stands for vinyl rubber trim and tires. So it's like dedicated to like that kind of surface, because it works on tires. It's like not shiny whatsoever. Maybe a little bit, but not super shiny. So it makes trim look brand new. It makes tires look dark but not shiny. But yeah, you would treat all your plastic trim and everything with VRT. And back then, when I very first started Adams Polishes, tire shine didn't even exist. So you would put VRT on your tires. And so it's just been a product in our line for a long time. But that's how you would essentially like give moisture to the trim and everything and make it look really nice. So
do you expect these Proline products would stain rubber trim any more than compound and polish?
These Proline products will have the same effect that our regular compound or polish has on trim. So yeah, I will stain it. Not to the point where you can't remove it. You just need like a tire and rubber cleaner to, I don't even know if we have a tire and rubber type product. Probably, I would say the tough product in the Proline, which is like an all-purpose cleaner, if you dilute that down, then you could clean the trim with that. Okay, so we saw the damage, right?
Yeah.
Like how bad it is?
And one more question, does our tape adhere pretty well to plastics?
Our tape will adhere to plastic, yes, as long as it's not treated with like VRT or ceramic coating. Yeah, it works pretty good. I think really ideally, like part of it is like, yeah, you're trying to, if it didn't, I wouldn't recommend using it, because that's like the main thing you're taping off, you know? But it's nice and thin, like I think like what a lot of detailers do is they use the blue. Why can't I think of the name of who makes it? But they use like blue painter's tape. And it's a little bit thicker of tape, so it ends up leaving like a seam here. And so not only will your compound and polish get in that seam, but also like it will rip the tape off of the surface. Whereas this one, I can go over this and it's not gonna pull the tape off. And then when you take it off, it doesn't leave any adhesive behind on the clear coat or the whatever you're polishing. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna just work in sections and just the way this is. So I'll start with the cut here, then I'll move to correct, then refine, then I'll do jewel here, and then I'll do the primo one step here. So you can see the different results. And then what I'll do is, then we'll go and try to make them perfect after that. Okay, and what I'm hoping is that in one step I can make it perfect. But that's part of like, I think professionals know this, but like this, you would do like you do test sections like this to get a sense of what the best results are in the least amount of time. And then once you know that, then you do that to the whole car. And then your goal is to do a one step because it's more efficient. You don't have to go around the car twice, So I'm gonna start, and what I'm gonna do is, since I have 5 pads, pretty much what I'm gonna do is I'll do 4 pads. So I'm gonna do wool with cut, microfiber with correct, blue foam with refine, and then white foam with jewel. And then I'll probably do the blue foam with the primo because that is like the most, it is literally middle of the road. And then what we'll do after that, then we'll kind of move pads around to see different results we can get. And so that's kind of the idea. So cut to start with. Like to shake it a little bit, make sure there's no seal on here. Okay. And the one thing I will say is like our compound and polish system is blue and white. You use a blue pad with the blue compound, you use a white pad with a white polish. All of these, I'm pretty sure in the bottle are all white. We didn't color code these because the pros kind of know it as like aggressive to not aggressive. Okay. Whoops. I gotta put this pad on. And, the thing about it is like the more aggressive of the compound or polish, like with cut, it's going to have the strongest abrasive, especially when you use it with a wool pad. And so when you have a really, really high abrasive, what it can do is leave micro marring on the surface when you're doing the job. And so if you have too much micro marring, then it's hard to correct it after. You almost have to do like a 3-step kind of thing. And so what you're trying to do in your test thing is like, I would recommend people to start at like correct or refine and then either bump your way up or bump your way down depending on the results you get. I'm gonna run this as speed setting 4 on the polisher. Okay, I'm not gonna bump it all the way to 6. I'm not gonna run it anything less than that. I like to at least start at 4. I tend to not even go to 6. If anything, I go to 5, but never make it to 6. So polishing, here, let me just say this. If you guys have questions on like the technique of polishing, just ask questions in the comments. If you're like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing it like that? I'll answer those questions separately, but I've done this so many times on the live that I imagine a lot of people understand this process already, but if you have questions, do not hesitate. So, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to keep it consistent amongst all. So I'm gonna do 2 passes. So that's side to side and up and down is 1 pass. I'm gonna do that twice. And I'm not gonna do any more or any less. So we can try to keep it consistent throughout. And here's a question for the viewers. Do you guys want me to show you the results on each section, or do you want me to wait until I've done all of them to then show the results? So put in the comments if you want to see it after each section or after I've done everything. So I'm like halfway through my second, or I'll be halfway through my second pass here right now. So I'm going on my last up and down sequence of my second pass. So like that, okay? So yeah, I can feel like a decent, it's not hot, but it's like warm. Oh, actually it feels good because it's kind of cold here, but that's the wool pad, so there's that. One thing I do want you to notice is our heaviest cutting compound in the Proline, it never generated a bunch of dust. Sometimes you use these like heavy cutting compounds and it creates white dust over the whole car because it dries out, the compound and abrasive dries out and then it creates dust everywhere. This stuff, that's the one thing the pro detailer said at Barrett-Jackson was like, I don't know how you guys do it, but we can like work through this and it never dusts over, which is like a really good feature of all these compounds and polishes. So
Ryan says he wants to see the results per section.
per section, okay, that's good. We're gonna, if you guys don't want to see it per section, get mad at Ryan because I'm gonna do it per section, all right?
Chester is asking what combo would I need to remove the dealer coating?
Combo he would need to remove the dealer coating. You know, Chester, I had talked to you about this, but that dealer coating it's not really like a ceramic coating. It's like it would be like the equivalent of like our CS3. And so I would tell you like, you know, you might not even need too aggressive of a compound. Like the regular blue compound would be enough to remove that just by doing 2 passes on that. And, you know, if your car has a little bit of damage in it, like maybe a little bit of swirl marks, it will also correct that at the same time. So
Rambo's asking what situation do you bump it up to 5 or 6 on the speed of your polisher?
the situation I'd bump it up to 5 or 6 is like if I'm not doing a lot of correction. And so oftentimes I would say like when a clear coat is really hard. So like German cars notoriously have hard paint. Some like custom cars, like custom car builders throughout the US, just depends on what paint's being used. But I would say like for the most part, like a German car, like my wife has a Volkswagen Atlas and like that paint is rock hard. So I actually have to run that at setting 5 and I have to use cut to do any work whatsoever because the clear coat is so hard. So like in that case, you know, sometimes maybe the car is extremely damaged, like deep scratches and a lot of oxidation and that kind of stuff. You need to do a little bit more work. I'll bump it up to 5. And really, the speed, it's not like faster means more work. It's more of like when you bump up the speed, it reduces the amount of like movements that the polisher is doing. It's doing more side to side movement and the oscillation and not like, because it's spinning and oscillating at the same time with these DA. DA stands for dual action. And so with the dual action, you kind of, to get refinement, you want more spinning and oscillations happening versus like when you want to correct, you want it to move side to side more. It's kind of like, I call them Mr. Miyagi's, but it's like, you know, if I wanted to do more work on this, I would really quickly go long swipes side to side. If I want to refine it, I would do slower, less pressure and do more swipes. Does that make sense? So that's essentially like you're controlling that with your polisher by bumping up the speed or lowering the speed. Oh, geez. Can't say I hate it.
It's pretty funny.
How does it look, Teddy?
It looks great. And then you can show that one.
Here, look. This is where we started. And we're going to move this way. Now, the one thing I'm looking for, it's hard to see with paint that has the metallic flake in it. But one thing I'm really looking for is like micro marring from the polisher. And I see a little bit of it in here. It's kind of hard to see. I guarantee you can't see it on camera. I can barely see it in here. Maybe if I move it, yeah, I can definitely see it. There's some like in here. And what micro marring looks like, it looks like little micro nicks in the paint, but they're in the same pattern of what the polisher was doing. So they're kind of like these, some people call them like sometimes you get like these pigtails. That's usually because your pad's dirty, but they're like little nicks that are like, you could almost like find a section that looks like what the pad is shaped in. It's like little, like tiny little marks. And that micro marring is like, when you use a heavy cut compound, you get that a lot because, and you're not really worried about it because you got rid of all the swirl marks and scratches and maybe deep scratches, but then your refine or jewel cleans up the micro marring to make it like a perfect finish. So, okay, so now we're gonna move on to this section. And maybe what I'll do is like, I'm not good at one hand folding. I'll go like this. I'm gonna put this right here, and then what I can do, I'll do it later so they don't fall over, but I'll put like what we're using on here. So now I'm gonna I switch to the microfiber pad.
Jester's asking if Renew would help his dealership program.
Renew is not gonna help. I mean, maybe a little bit. Renew in the Proline is like a super concentrated strip wash, super aggressive. You know, I would probably tell you, Chester, just stick with our strip wash would be probably better for you. Especially on like a newer car that's been quote unquote coated with a water-based spray ceramic. You know, I think if you're gonna be doing any polishing anyways, it's smart to do a strip wash already. And I think our strip wash is more than enough for like the car that, and I like the reason why I'm saying that is like Renew is more aggressive than our strip wash, and professional detailers need it to be more aggressive because they can dilute it, or they're working on cars that are real bad. They like cars have been neglected for years, you know. And here I don't want to put professional detailers in like a box, you know, because there's different levels of professional detailers. You have guys that have, like, we know somebody, their brother has a detailing shop in Utah. They get shipped supercars from Germany to their shop, from all around the world to their shop to have PPF and paint correction done and ceramic coating, right? We also know detailers that come into this shop all the time that are local to a neighborhood in Colorado, and they have clients, they constantly work on their cars. So like there's a lot of different levels to professional detailers, and like some professional detailers are working on, you know, minivans that get real jacked up and they need super aggressive stuff, and that's why like Renew and the Proline is more aggressive. You also have guys that are working on cars that are almost already perfect, and maybe they really only need jewel and refine, you know, but there's just like a lot of different options, and there's a lot of different levels to professional detailers, and all of them are amazing at what they do, you know. And I think part of what we want to do is provide the right tools for any professional detailer, not just like, we're not just targeting like the super high-end shop. It's just not fair, you know. Okay, so now we're on to correct with the microfiber pad. Okay, I'm not gonna change anything except the pad and the compound, okay? Same thing, 2 passes. Trying to keep my pressure about the same. The pressure I'm doing is essentially what I call the rule of thumb. I learned that actually at a sanding, rotary, and DA class at Rupes. But essentially, like on Adam Polish's polisher, there's the A logo right here. It's how hard I can press with my thumb, is what the rule of thumb is called. That's my first pass, going into my second pass. So one thing you'll notice, I don't know if you remember, but like on this side, when I finished doing my 2 passes, you could see the cut on the surface. Like you can still see it right here, right? Over here, it's a little bit harder to see. Like it's a little bit right here, but the microfiber pad tends to absorb more of the product. Okay, so you can use a little bit more on the microfiber pad, but because it takes in, like the microfibers take in more of the product, you need to brush it out more often. Okay, I need to grab a brush. I don't have it with me right now, but let's wipe this off. And let's see if Correct did anything for us. Oh, wow. Okay. Not bad. So one thing I'm noticing is, I don't know if you can see it in the, there's deeper scratches that are left behind. Yeah. So, you know, versus like over here, this is like virtually perfect, right? So with some of the deeper scratches left behind, that doesn't necessarily mean that like Correct is the wrong product. What it can mean is that maybe I had the wrong pad. So Correct might be more effective on this particular paint with a wool pad. So what I would end up doing probably is like, I know I got pretty great results here, but I saw some micro marring. What I potentially would do is get a fresh wool pad, try Correct, and the more aggressive pad mixed with the step down of aggressive and compound might give me perfect results. Like I wouldn't have any micro marring and I wouldn't have any damage anymore. You know, so that's the thing about the Proline stuff is there's no one pad and one compound or polish that pair together that are going to work every time. You can mix them all around to achieve the results. And again, like the whole idea of this is if I can just do 2 passes and make it perfect, that means I can very efficiently make it around the whole car. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to switch to the blue foam pad. And we're going to do a step down in the, we're now, I would say like in a polish. This would be called a correcting polish. Whereas like Cut is a heavy duty cutting compound. Correct is a all-purpose correcting compound. Now you have a correcting polish. So like this refine is going to be like, it's probably an abrasive that will cut early and then it will start to refine a little bit faster. And so you can get really good results with it, especially like a car that isn't like super damaged. Maybe if I could get some of it out of the bottle, man, that's pretty awful. Okay, I just want to make sure there's no seal. There we go. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but every time I put it onto the pad, it's white or maybe a little gray, but like it's not blue or any kind of crazy color. So now we're going to move on to this section, which I can show you guys really quick. Again, back to like the super damaged. This was with Correct, so a little bit of heavy damage left. This is with Cut, which actually did a really good job. So Cut, Correct. Now we're going to go into Refine right here. Okay. The interesting thing about the blue foam pad is it's pretty firm when you start with it, but as it starts to warm up from the paint correction process, it would actually get a little bit more soft. Kind of expands the cells of the foam, it gets a little bit more soft. So again, not changing anything, same thing, rule of thumb, 2 passes. Okay. Wipe this off. I think there was some pretty heavy damage, like deep scratches in this before we started that I was noticing.
Joe, when you're all done with the pad, Ryan's saying spray some all-purpose cleaner on the pad and then runs under hot water and until the blue compound seems to be gone. You recommend anything else?
Yeah, I can grab it really quick. Here, let's look at the results before I address that. Ryan, I'm going to address that question here in a second. But there's some really deep, there's like really deep scratch right here, really deep scratches right here, and right here. Like really deep. To the point, I don't, can you see that?
can see them, yeah.
You can? It's probably a little bit easier to see. Yeah. Teddy has it right there. So super deep scratches. And what I imagine these are from is, listen, I can only speculate, but someone set a bag right here, put something right here, and then they went and dragged it, picked it up and dragged it, and it went and like the bag scratched this like crazy because it's not consistent throughout the whole thing. Like this doesn't have the same deep scratches like that, and neither does this. So, that's why I think like right here, someone set a bag and then like dragged it and picked it up. So, what I would end up doing, which I don't know if I have time, but I would sand this. I would sand, because the thing about, there's not a ton of, I guess there's a little bit. I would actually, I was going to say I would sand, or I did say I would sand it. I probably wouldn't actually, now that I think about it, because there's a lot of orange peel. And this is like, this car has been repainted, okay? Like the whole thing has been repainted. And so, it has orange peel. If I sand this, it might remove that orange peel and it would be like a glaringly obvious spot that has been sanded and paint corrected. Okay, so there's ways to sand these without removing orange peel, but I don't have the right tools for that here at Adams Polishes. So, probably what I would end up doing is like going to a store and getting the necessary stuff to do that. But again, like, I think it's like if you're a professional detailer and you're doing a job like this, when you go around and look, here's the thing. Everyone pretty much has a smartphone. So like if I didn't catch this when the customer brought me the car, I would show them that. Or if I polish this and I saw this, I would take a video of it and I would send it to my client and be like, hey, there's some damage on here. I don't know necessarily what it's from, but I want to correct it, but I don't want to screw anything up. Like, are you fine if I fix that? You don't have to say sanding or anything, but are you fine if I fix it? And if they're like, yeah, please do, I want it perfect, then you could go into the sanding options. But sometimes a client will be like, no, it's fine. That doesn't bother me. Just finish the rest of the car. And then you're like, okay, then you don't have to go sand it and do all this stuff, right? So Ryan asked, he said, all-purpose cleaner, sprayed in, like once you're done polishing, doing your whole job, how to clean the pads. I would almost, instead of all-purpose cleaner, I would recommend this. This is called Talon Pad Revitalizer, and it's a specific formula to clean pads and polishing pads. And so, this is a 32-ounce bottle. It comes in a 16 plus the gallon right here. And, you can use this almost like as laundry detergent to clean your towels and stuff, but you can also mix it with like warm water in a bucket, and you can throw your dirty pads in there as they get really bad, let them soak, and then with the same pad conditioning brush that you use to brush out your pads, you can use that to scrub your pads with that formula. And you can, these two come with sprayers, so you can have it with you. Spray it directly into the pad, massage it with your fingers, brush it with the pad conditioning brush, and then, if you have them soaking in one with the Talon Pad Revitalizer formula, you always want to have a second bucket with clean water in it. Or you could do it outside even with like a hose. I don't recommend doing it in like your sink inside because you end up getting like this kind of ring of polish or compound. I usually do it outside, and I'll just use my hose and get in there, wring it out until there's no more solution coming out. Then you let them air dry, and then you're good to go. And like, you know, the blue dye in the compound, it can stain the pads, you know, but generally you're using it with blue. But like, just because the blue dye is in it doesn't mean that they're not clean. Okay, like really you want to see like the loose fibers and not like matted compound and polish on there. So I think Talon Powder, you know, all-purpose cleaner is great, but Talon Powder Revitalizer is like designed specifically for cleaning pads and towels. And when I say design, meaning like the chemistry inside of that is designed to break down the whatever is in this compound and polish. Okay, so okay, now we're gonna move on to, I'll do this section right here. I'm switching to the white pad. That is not centered. That was like really not good. Okay, that's better. Now we're gonna go to Jewel, which is like the finishing, ultra fine finishing. So like, I don't know, it might remove some of those swirl marks, but it's probably definitely, if there's any deeper scratches, heavy damage, is probably not gonna remove that whatsoever. Okay. Just gonna do this small section right here because I wanted to save this for Primo so you can see that. You can see this stuff is like really kind of not like oily, but it's like very lubricated. And what I suspect is, and what I know is that our chemists do that specifically for ultra fine polishes because you want to be able to work through the abrasive in that for longer so you can break it down to create a better finish. So same speed, everything, same pressure with my thumb. Trying to move at the same rate. Teddy was getting that nose hair shot. A low angle nose hairs. I don't think I've graduated to like a lot of nose hair yet. My barber hasn't like trimmed it yet, so it's like I feel like pretty good. Okay. As I expected. Still a lot of heavy damage. Like a lot. Like the super micro swirls are still there. See that now? So like, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just, it's expected. Like, Jewel is designed to make a perfect finish after you've removed a lot of the damage, you know? And it's something to use with like finicky paint. So if there's like soft, like new black GM paint is like real soft paint. And so, you know, with that, you could probably get away with like starting with Refine and then finishing with Jewel. And I don't know why I can't get this on here straight. Anyways, so like that was expected. There's a lot of heavy damage left. Jewel just doesn't have the abrasive in it to cut through that, you know. So obviously, like most cutting. So I said I was gonna do this, but it's kind of like this. We had cut over here. We had correct right here, and then I guess I can go like this. We had Refine here, and then we had Jewel over here. And then we're gonna do Primo that way. But, you know, the story here is that because there is some heavy damage in the paint, cut is gonna be, it's gonna remove the most damage. Like this is virtually perfect with maybe barely any micro marring. Like I don't even think necessarily like the client would even notice the micro marring in this. And then as you move to correct, it did a little bit better of a job. I was talking about it before. I just don't think this is the right pad. Like I think if I used the wool pad with correct, this would have came out a lot better. And then as I moved down to refine, which is more of a polish, not a compound, unfortunately there was some really deep scratches in here, but there's still a lot of deeper damage in the finish here. So refine just doesn't have the cutting power that correct and cut have. And then getting down to Jewel, you know, I mean, it gave it a lot of gloss, but like there's still a lot of deeper damage that's in there that I'm very confident that cut would remove, you know? So now with Primo, this is a one-step all-in-one compound. So this is designed to use it one time around the car, not necessarily switching these. I'm gonna put these back so they don't tip over, but we're gonna try Primo, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try it with the blue foam pad because that's like the most middle of the road, okay? And what I'll explain here in a second is that with Primo, you know, you do a test, you might have to do multiple test spots, but what you're trying to do is find the right Primo and pad combination to get the best results possible. So then you can just do a quick one step around the whole car. And so like my recommendation is if you have a lot of these pads, the blue foam pad, which is the one, remember it's an open cell firm foam. It's the most middle of the road. It's the best place to start. And if you feel like you didn't remove enough damage, then you can always bump up to the microfiber pad, or you can even bump your way all the way up to the foam pad. And so I always start with a blue foam pad when I do my first test spot for any one-step polish. That's including the one we sell currently. Oh my gosh. Where is it at? There we go. Oh, look, that one's teal. That's cool. They match the color to the label. I wasn't expecting that at all. Okay, let's come over here. And I can show you guys again really quick what we're dealing with. So again, heavy swirl marks. And another thing to consider is like, sometimes the swirl marks are so bad that you might cut through on your first couple passes, you might cut through all of those swirl marks, and then it kind of reveals the deeper damage underneath that. Adam has always said this, but like detailing is like peeling back layers. You do one thing and then you're like, you know, you might polish the whole car and then you're like, oh my gosh, all the trim is faded. And that's like, you just peel back a layer. Then you do all the trim and then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't clean the barrels of the wheels. It's like, you're kind of finding, and that's why oftentimes with your own car, you're like, it's this long detailing journey of like getting it perfect because there's things you have to address along the way. Okay, so Primo blue foam pad. Again, the only thing I did amongst all these, the only thing I changed is the pad and the polish. I didn't change the speed or anything like that. Trying to do the same pressure and how fast I'm moving. Now Primo, again, kind of like Refine, is gonna have a long open time, meaning I can polish on the car with Primo for a very long time because my goal is to be able to break down the Primo one-step polish for a longer time, because I imagine the way that the abrasive is structured is that it's going to be heavy cutting up front, and then like over time it's going to start breaking down to a refinement and hopefully like finish pretty good. So just so you guys know, full disclosure, when I'm using any one-step polish, I would end up doing an extra pass because I want that extra time for the abrasive to continue to break down. But in the essence of what we're doing on the live, I'm just going to do the 2 passes so you guys can see it. The other thing I will say that I just absolutely love about all the Proline compounds and polishes is they are very easy to remove. It's just the weight of my hand to remove it. And I've used compounds where like you try to swipe it once, it doesn't do anything when you wipe it. So naturally what ends up happening is people then push harder. And if you push harder and scrub, it can create damage in the finish. So the fact that our chemists created this to be
Check your model here real quick, your mic pad.
mic pack. No audio.
No audio. Let me check on my phone as well.
Hello. It says I'm good.
Other people say it's good too.
Okay.
Okay.
But anyways, you know, if it's, I just commend the chemists for making it easy to remove, because if it wasn't easy to remove, you know, it could potentially even look like it's not, you know, there might be scuffs around, and that's from you wiping instead of making it easy like they have, which, you know, again, like I talk about this a lot, but like the goal of detailing is like take progress steps forward and not go backwards. So like if you have to scrub a compound off and it mars it or scratches it, then you have to repolish it. It's like you already did that. You don't want to go back and do it, you know? So, oh wow, okay. Okay, Primo. Primo did a great job. There is some, there just, you know, again, like I said, like there was a ton of swirl marks on this. If you guys remember, we got through all of that. It looks amazing, but there is some like really deep scratches in here. Like,
Okay, I can see that.
yeah.
Does
If I hold it.
Primo leave protection at all?
Primo does not leave any protection.
And will these pads, will they get you through a whole car?
It depends. You know, I think depending on the condition of the car, it might, you know, but like, let me just say this. About a month ago, if any of you guys were on the live about a month ago, I was in Anaheim at the Adams Polish's Anaheim store, and we were polishing on a 1975 Datsun 280Z, which had probably never been washed, maybe twice. And so it was crazy oxidized. We went through a lot of pads that day because we were pulling off oxidized paint from that car, and it would get so bad that it would load the pads up. So we would, and those ones we threw out because it was single stage paint. So it was just like orange. It was almost like brownish orange because the oxidation had so much dirt inside of it. So like in that case, no, not one of these pads is definitely not going to get you through the whole car. In this case of this car, it's not that bad. So, you know, and it's clear coated. So like, you know, by brushing your pads out consistently, you probably would be fine. And if anything, what I would say is like, and this is just something that I like to do, it's personal preference for everybody, but when I'm doing detailing jobs and polishing, I tend to use one pad for one side of the car and a second pad for the other side. But again, if it's really damaged, bad, like our friends at Running for Tacos across the highway, Twan, he bought like an older Tundra that was white oxidized paint. And like I went through a lot of pads in that. It was even a little bit more modern. It wasn't 1975. It was like a 2006. And because it was oxidized, I went through more pads in that case. It was kind of like 3 pads per each side. It was like,
How are you able to tell when it's time for it to cut?
you'll be able to tell when it's time when like, honestly, the best way to tell is like after you polish and you wipe it off, if it's not cutting and like giving you the results that you were getting in the beginning, that's a sign that like your pads are overloaded. Also, like if there's a lot of dust happening from like oxidation going into the pad and it's hard to like brush it out, that's a good indicator that you should switch your pad out, you know? And listen, here's the thing, like, especially like when your pads sit out like this, dust gets on them, you might get something in the pad and you might see like little, it looks like these little corkscrew, we call them pigtails, they're like little corkscrews. That means there's something like a little miniature rock in your pad that's like creating that, you know? So in that case, I would switch out pads, you know, or blow it out or do something. But yeah, I think it's like when your polishing pad is not giving you the results that you did when you did your test spot, it's not giving you those results, it's time to move on from the pad, you know? But brushing your pad out with a pad conditioning brush consistently, you know, to get the pores of the foam or the fibers of the microfiber continuing to work is very important. Like I would say like almost after you do one section, when you're gonna add more compound to it, brush it out first. Have a trash can next to you, brush it, let it go into the trash can, then add more compound and keep going in your next section, you know? But if you don't brush it out, then it clogs the pores of the foam or it clogs the fibers of the microfiber or wool, and then it literally will not do anything. It's like it cakes up because it generates heat. It generates heat from 2 different ways, from the friction that the pad and abrasives create from doing the movement on the paint, but also like in the backing plate, you see these holes, there's vents that are pushing the heat from the motor inside of here, pushing it out through this. And so that heat will gum up the compound if you don't brush it out, and then it's like butter. It like glides on the surface, doesn't cut at all, 0.
And if your polisher, Ryan wants to know if your polisher is jerking around too much or grabbing the surface too much, is that a sign the pad is too dry?
Yeah, I think it's like, so there's a couple different ways to approach that. So Ryan asked, like, if your pad is like choppy on the surface, it's probably too dry. So you either need to add more compound or there's a couple different ways. Like if you have compound, like in this case, right, like you can see the Primo that's still in this pad. It's, as we sit here, it's drying. This is drying out, okay? What I can do is take, in the Proline it's called Enhance, in our line it's called Detail Spray. You could even use water, okay? You can spray it directly on here and it will rehydrate the polish or compound, and then you can keep going. But the more often you do that, the more that the abrasive is breaking down in this, and then the cutting power starts to reduce. So like you can do that to like cycle through your polish or compound, but at a certain point you need to add more so it continues to have like a cutting power. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so we saw the results of all of them. You know, again, I would say like this was the best result in my mind. And funny enough, it was the heaviest cutting capability of a compound. And again, like I think part of it is that this is a custom paint job, and so who knows what kind of clear coat they used on this car. I have no idea. So it could be a clear coat that's really hard, and that's why cut gave us the best results, because you know it's a little bit, this paint is a little bit more resistant to the heavy abrasive that is in the cut, right? And so like if it was me and I was a professional, I would just do cut with wool. I would do that to the whole car. You know, and again, like when I'm doing, like, I tend to work in panels when I polish a car. And like in this case, you know, I would consider like this, where the hood lifts up, where this seam is, all the way there is like one panel. So like I'd probably split it off into quarters. And like after I compound and do this section of this quarter, I will wipe it off and check it. And then if it's good, then I'd move on and I would wipe it off and check it, and then you can really get a sense of like, is my compound still working? Is my pad messed up? Am I getting the results that when I did my test spot, that it's doing what I want it to do,
Would you use something after the cut or just ceramic coat it?
For me, this result is so good that it's almost nearly impossible to see micro marring if there is any. And so I would ceramic coat right after this. I would not do Joule or anything. I think like if I go to Joule, it's going to, well, I don't know. Guess what? Let's look. We're going to check. This is primo. We're going to try it. We're going to see. I guarantee you're not going to be able to see it in camera, but we're going to let Teddy be somewhat of the judge here. Excuse me. My throat's getting dry because I talk too much. Okay, so we're going to do Joule in this section, and we'll try to see. I'm going to show you guys one more time. And just by the way, after I do this, we're going to jump off the live, but next week I will do the Defend graphene coating. I just want more time with that because I want to talk about it a little bit more. So you guys can see the surface. I would say really what you're looking for is if there's any haze around the spotlight of the light that I'm holding. And if there's really any haze around like the hex lights that you see up there. We're going for clarity right now. And I'll just tell you, with like the naked eye, what I'm seeing, it's already very clear. Does that make sense? So see that? So we're gonna try Joule on this. And I wanna see if, like, probably on camera it's gonna be hard to see, but Teddy will be able to give you a very honest answer. And he's a very honest guy, and I know this because on the second day that he worked here, he broke his wrist and he told us. He didn't lie to us. He actually came to work the next day. So I know he's a credible guy, okay? I'm going to keep it at 4. I'm not going to change anything. Actually, should I I might not do one little section so we can maybe try to see if there's a difference.
Anton's curious. Do you know if the defend cure time is the same as advanced before you do the live on it?
Defend cure time, is it the same as advanced? Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely Anton. I think Anton's speaking in like how he's doing it in his environment, but like all the ceramic coatings are different cure times based on like the environment, the ambient temperature, the humidity. So like in the Philippines, it's, I would say yes. Like really the indicators you're looking for, if you can see them, is the rainbow. When the rainbow goes away and you start to see it sweat, that's when you wipe it off. So Anton, I would tell you that like your process shouldn't change very much, but because it's more concentrated than the advanced, it's probably going to cure faster because there's less of the solvent inside of it, So I try to leave a little section right here so we can try to see if there's much of a difference at all. And probably what I'll do is try to leave it so just one little section so we can see. Okay, let's grab the light.
Oh, Anton's curious if he means after the whole thing is done, like letting it cure over over a period of time after
Oh,
before you buff it out?
yeah, I would. Yeah, Anton meant like curing after he's done doing the job. Yeah, I would say like Anton, like there's differing instruction on how long you should wait until like the car can be driven. Um, it's less about when it can be driven. It's more about like when moisture will touch the ceramic coating. Moisture meaning rain, dew. There's a lot of sprinklers. There's all kinds of factors. But, I would say like, I think a good rule of thumb is like 9 to 12 hours before water can touch the surface. I would say after about 24 hours, is it fully cured? Maybe even like a little bit longer than that. But, 9 to 12 hours before it can be driven. So like in your case, Anton, like you're doing it professionally, if you can be finishing the car at like 5 or 6 in the evening, call it 8 or 9, it doesn't matter. But like you can let it sit overnight and then you have the customer pick it up in the afternoon. So like you're finishing the car at 6 in the evening and then like they're picking it up at 9, that's 15 hours, which is perfect. That's what I try to do is like ceramic coatings, like the last thing I'm doing, whether it's like from 3 late afternoon to like 6 in the evening, you can let it sit all the way overnight. And generally, like if people are picking it up, they're not there at 6 in the morning. Like they're kind of coming in at 9 or 10. I don't know what it's like for Anton, but like that's generally what I try to do. I try to like think of the time frame of like, sometimes they'll even tell you when they're going to pick it up. So if they tell me like, I'll be there at 8, then I'm like trying to finish my ceramic coating at 4 in the evening. So I give it like that time to finish it. You kind of like schedule around it, Or let's say that they're going to pick it up at 6 at night, ceramic coated at 5 in the morning. I don't know. It's just like, you want to give that 9 to 12 hours buffer before it can get wet, Does it look any different, Teddy?
No.
Doesn't look much. So here's kind of like where, I don't know, I think maybe a little. But see, this is where, if I'm a professional detailer doing a job, guess what I'm doing right now? I'm wasting time. So like for me, because it's so close and it's like I'm having to really convince my mind that Jewel did anything, I would not do it. It's so close that especially your customer who is not a professional detailer, who doesn't see this stuff all the time, they're going to be like, you do a one step with cut and it looks like that. They're going to be like, what did you do to my car? This looks amazing. It's like, and I think that's something that this is very much a different philosophy, what I'm about to say, than like what we teach is like, the process oftentimes doesn't matter as long as the result that you get is what you want. Does that make sense? So like, I think we're all trained to be like, you have to do a 2-step. You have to do a 3-step. If you can get away with a 1-step and it's perfect, that is like ideal. It's more efficient. That means, listen, if you had to spend 12 hours paint correcting a car and then you didn't have time to address the trim, that's different. That's like, no, right? Like if you could get away with 1 step, you spend 6 hours polishing and then you can go and clean all the trim, ceramic coat it. You could clean the soft top. You could do the interior. It's like the car is going to look perfect, but if you allow yourself even extra time to even go like above and beyond, maybe they only bought a paint correction and graphene ceramic coating job, right? And you quoted them for like 12 hours of work, but you finished it in 8 and you had 4 hours left. You could even just clean the interior, just quick clean the interior, vacuum, do a quick all-in-one interior cleaning product and like get the interior looking nice. That customer would be like, oh, I didn't pay for it. And you're like, I know, I had a little bit extra time, so I just did it for you. They would be like, their heads would pop off their shoulders. They'd be like, what? Okay, when can I schedule my wife's car? When can I schedule my parents' car? When can I come back? It's like that little bit of extra, I think it's easy to be like, well, I'm done, I move on to the next car. But like if you just did that, spend an extra hour and like do something extra, they would freak out, So listen, I don't do professional detailing full time, so like that could be the complete opposite way of thinking about it. But like to me, professional detailing is just relationship building and maintaining. It's like, I've seen a lot of professional detailers out here that like they do exactly what they're quoted and they check the box and they're done. And they might get like some repeat customers, but the professional detailers I see that like do extra and build relationships with their customers, they're like, okay, you paint corrected my car and ceramic coated it. I'm going to let you wash my car every month. It's like you're trying to create relationships to like have repeat business more often. I think like if I did do professional detailing as a career, like I stopped doing the live. I bailed on Adams Polishes. If I was going to be a professional detailer, my goal would be like learning how to take a customer from like paint correction and ceramic coating and turning them into a annual customer that's constant, like coming back to me every month. It's easy to capture like, let's just say $1,000. That's not even close. Okay, I'm totally undercutting the market. But let's say that you charge them $1,000 for paint correction and ceramic coating. That's one touch point you have with them. If I can then, that's like, let's call that June. If I can then wash their car every month until June again, and I charge them $100, that's now $1,100, which is more money than my paint correction ceramic coating. And now I just captured them throughout the whole year, and you're like really taking care of their stuff. I think that's how I would think about it. Versus, I don't know if Anton can, or any professional detailer on here, if you can comment on that, but that's kind of like, I think that's like a business thing too. It's like, I don't want to sell somebody one bottle of surface prep. Like I want to get them the whole kit and everything they need so they can ceramic coat their car. But then I also want them to have the best products to maintain it for as long as possible. So yeah. All that to say, these are the results we got with polishing the car. But anyways, I hope that was like a decent understanding of like how these all work. I honestly, like, I could spend a whole nother hour going through like different combinations of all this stuff. Just try to keep it like pretty basic. What I'll probably do next week, I'm going to do it on the same car, but what I'm going to do next week is I'll show you the results because I'm going to finish this. I'll show you the results and also show you the combination of what I used to get this perfect before we ceramic coat. So I'm going to kind of do some, like probably what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try correct with the wool pad right on some of these. And I have a sneaky suspicion that that's going to be the best result. It's going to be the best cutting, but also the best finishing. But I will say like cut already did pretty amazing. So I don't know. I might just stick with that. So, but yeah, next week I'll show you Defend, which is the pro grade graphene ceramic coating. And again, this is a complete different formula than what we have up there. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If anything, hopefully it was entertaining. And if you learned something along the way, even better. I will say coming up here in about a week and a half, we're going to release a video, which is like this 1975 280Z. We're calling it a barn find. It's more of a garage find, but no one calls it that. It was found in Anaheim, California, where there's not a lot of barns. So we're calling it a barn find, and we talk about it in there. But Adam, myself, and Anthony, who you see a lot on Instagram and other places, the three of us got together and we transformed this car. And it's one of the coolest videos I've ever put together. Like I'm doing it less of like step by step, this is how you do it, and more of like entertaining and having fun and trying to teach people stuff along the way. So make sure you check that out once it comes out. Probably next Wednesday. We'll be getting pretty close to finalizing it. So I'll let you guys know when it's going to be live. But yeah, we'll see you guys next week on Wednesday. Talk about pro grade ceramic coating. And get this car perfect. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys.